SOMA. It is so good to be with you guys. It's so exciting to see all of you again each and every single week. I look forward to this. Tonight we have a special treat for you though. It is not just myself and some of my pastors. Why do this always happens to me? Every single week, I always forget because I have the YouTube open as well. But what I was saying, it's not just me. I have some special guests that are not just my pastors, but your pastors as well. I have my lovely wife, Quinn, here. I have Joel McLean in the flesh, the master of propaganda, and the one and only Amanda Lorino joining us. And so it is so exciting that you guys are here. Amanda, why don't you say hi to everyone first?
Hi guys. It's been a while, but hope everyone's doing well. Miss y'all. I miss everyone. I miss hanging out on Tuesday nights.
Yeah, we are missing Tuesday nights. Quinn, why don't you say what's up to everyone?
What up, y'all? I see you guys. Love you guys.
Quinn rocking the SOMA sweater from home because it is Tuesday, and so that is good. And then finally, the master of propaganda, Field Master Joel, go ahead.
Hey everyone, how's it going? I opened up the YouTube chat and I knew Sam would say first, and just FYI, I would be first, but I was getting set up on Zoom, so just a heads up.
I second that. I also held out on saying first.
Yeah. Well, next week, man.
I always think about it because I'm the one that sends out the link, and so I feel like some week we should just all troll Sam and get out there. A couple people in the chat. Matthew McBride, it is good to see you. Leah says Amanda with an exclamation point. And then,
stop it, Leah.
And then Quinn with 17 exclamation points, also from Leah. Julia's with us. Nathan's with us. Riley's with us. And so it is so awesome. But let me pray before we get into things, and then we'll get into some good conversations. But God, thanks so much for what you're doing in our lives and the lives of SOMA. God, thanks for this season that you're in it. You're faithful, you're consistent. God, you're still on the throne. God, I pray a blessing over everyone tuning in to SOMA Live on YouTube and what you're doing in their lives. Would you continue to grow and prosper them in their relationship? In your name we pray, amen. So tonight is going to look a little bit different, but I'm excited about it. And so SOMA, this is your time to interact. This is your time. If you have questions for us, at any point, just go ahead and throw questions into the chat. We want to field them. But I want to share a couple of my thoughts from this quarantine time and some things that have worked for me, haven't worked for me, things that have been good, things that have been kind of tricky in this season. And so one of the first things that I would say that has kept me healthy and grounded during this time is my devotional time. In this season, it's been easier but challenging. I don't know if that kind of makes sense, to be in my devotions, because there's so much more time, but with more time doesn't mean you're better at using your time, because if you're anything like me, you're probably a procrastinator. And I love to put things off. Quinn will attest to that. I'll do it tomorrow. Tomorrow is always a better day to do things for me. And so I've just had to be really, really consistent in my devotional time. But God has just been really faithful in this season of my devotional time and speaking to me, keeping me grounded, giving me peace. And so it's been a huge win for me. The second thing that would be a huge unexpected win for me, but it's not surprising, would be I've been working out a lot. I've been staying consistent in physical exercise, and it's actually just been really good. The endorphins have been good. It's helped me stay on routine. It's helped me be consistent. It's helped me just be active, whether it's working out here at the church. I kind of have like a ghetto home gym set up at the gymnasium at our church, or going on walks with Quinn. If you follow her on Instagram, that's basically her job right now. She just goes on walks all the time, but she loves it. It's good. The third thing besides my devotional time, physical exercise, has been staying connected. Right now, we're physically distant from people, but if you know me, you know that I love people. I love being around people. I love connecting with people. I love having coffee with people. So it's been staying connected, whether it's text messages, calling people, whether it's been the lead Zoom call that we have every single week. It's just finding ways to stay connected with people, because just because I'm not around them doesn't mean that I can't stay up to them, stay close to them. And so staying connected. And then the fourth sort of key to my success in this season has been staying busy. I kind of have been so busy with work, but then even on my days off or days away from the church, I kind of have them planned out, whether it's a plan to do nothing and just Sabbath, or if it's a plan to, I don't know, go golfing or stay busy or different things like that. I always plan to do something. And even if my plan is to do nothing, that's still a plan. And so it has been keeping my days full and keeping them planned. But enough from me. I want to ask some of our leaders. Let's start with Joel. Joel, you're a teacher, and obviously school's not been happening at this time. What has quarantine looked like in your life?
Good question. Guys, I'm the one on the other end. When you submit an assignment, or when you're frustrated, or when you're typing, when you're trying to figure out how to download an assignment on your iPad, but it runs out of storage, I'm the one who gets all the complaints. So even though not you personally, but just in general, as a principal, you know what I mean? The principal of another teacher. It's been an adventure. So I feel you guys. Online school is not the easiest thing in the world to get a handle of, although the work's actually pretty easy, but it's just the whole COVID thing. It's a big thing. So what my day looks like, my usual day, is because I don't need to go to school, I guess, the actual building. I roll out of bed, I walk over to the kitchen, I pour myself a bowl of cereal or make up some eggs or something like that. And then I pop on the computer, and I'm basically on the computer from about 8:30 until the end of school time. So I don't know, about 3 o'clock or so. But then I might be a little bit longer depending on the situation. That's like Monday to Friday for me. And then after that, it's kind of up in the air at that point. Jordan said that he was really good with keeping physically active and physically fit. I have not. I'm trying my best. I'm going for walks. My mom and I have been going for a couple of walks, which is cool to kind of catch up. One of the kind of little rabbit trail here, one of the cool things, which could be a really good positive for some people, but negative for some other people, is that you're kind of stuck with family. And although I don't live with my parents anymore, my brother and I moved out into a new place, which is super cool. Quarantine has been like a good opportunity to connect with family. And so we've been taking as much opportunity to take advantage of that as possible in a positive way, not in a cabin fever, get me out of here sort of way. But so plenty of walking. SOMA's on Tuesday nights, of course. I may do a couple little things for school the next morning. And yeah, it's been a kind of like a rhythm of going through times of like spiritual disciplines, going through just kind of fun, getting outside. And then if I sit down and watch Netflix, I've actually started watching a bit of Naruto, of all things. Classic. Got to get the classic animes out of the way. So haven't never watched it. So I'm a couple seasons in already over the past 3 weeks or so. And so, yeah, it's going pretty well. That's generally my day.
That's really cool. Now, would you say that you've been busier in quarantine with your job and school, or like less busy with more free time, or is it like a little bit of both?
It's definitely a little bit of both. From what I'm gathering from myself, as well as other teachers and students, you definitely have your times where you're just not working, but generally it's more tedious. It's because you're not connected with people. And so with that, it's so hard to gain the proper information and intel that you need. And it seems like a little bit scattered. And so although you might not be like in conversing with people 6 hours a day, I find, and most people find, that it's a little frustrating, and it's a little bit more taxing on the personal psyche, because you're just like, I just want to be with this person and help them, rather than like trying to do an audio chat and like tech issues happening, or like texting or something like that. So that's just what I find.
No, that's really cool. Now, Amanda, what has quarantine been like for you?
Yeah, as an extreme extrovert, It's been good. I still work, so it's been like just basically I wake up, I actually go to my office, which is great. And then sorry, this chat is so distracting. You're watching the chat, right? If people have
Yeah.
questions. I'm like so focused on people's comments, it's not even funny. But I was gonna say I go to my office still, which is great, so it changes scenery. But it's been tough. Like I always said that I work to have like a paycheck to be able to support a social lifestyle. So now that I'm not able to have a social lifestyle, it's like, why am I working? But it's been good. Sorry, it's been really good. In the sense that I've like learned to appreciate quiet time. And oh my gosh, sorry, I choked on my own spit, but surviving. Nonetheless, I'm surviving. Yeah, do you have any more questions? I'll go over those.
What's your nights look like? Like, what have you been doing with your time? Because your days are still busy with work, but then you're not rock climbing, you're not hanging out with 50 million students a week, and seeing all those people. So, what does your nights look like?
Yeah, sure. I'm glad you brought up bouldering because I haven't been able to bring that up in years. I don't know if people knew that I boulder. I only talk about it once every couple of minutes, but no, it's been challenging because I thought that was a really interesting change of pace in my lifestyle. Because like last year, I was very heavily involved with like church ministry, which was awesome, and then I noticed it kind of led to like a little bit of a burnout. So this year, I was like trying to get out of my comfort zone and try new things, and started hanging out with people that like weren't part of the faith, which is a very different, because I work with Christians and then I also like spend most of my time with my church friends. So I was like, oh, this was such an interesting year because I got to actually do like ministry with friends that didn't know the faith. And then all of a sudden like had this huge pause. And so it became like, oh, what now? And like, how do you become creative with like talking to people about faith over texting or over FaceTime? Because the conversations were so much more interesting, I felt like, with like an icebreaker of doing an activity. I've been pleasantly surprised though. Like it's been interesting that like I feel like you're able to connect with more people because it's technology is so advanced, but the depth of conversation sometimes don't look similar. And I find that sometimes frustrating because I feel like it's like, oh, I don't know if the conversation's going anywhere. But I think that's what makes faith interesting, is that like sometimes it's just, it is what it is. And you kind of have to leave your hands off the wheel a little bit and like let Holy Spirit kind of guide what's next. I hope that makes sense.
No, that's really cool. Now, Quinn, what have you been doing with your time in quarantine?
I love how you laugh asking that question because you have no idea what I'm doing.
I have no clue.
I have found that the best thing is a routine. So for myself, I've like been sleeping in till like 8:30, which is really powerful. So I'll like sleep in and then I'll read, either do my devotions or I started a book. This is also like post finishing school, so keep that in mind. But yeah, so I've been reading a book in the morning, and then I'll like work out, either go for a run or do a YouTube video. And then, yeah, and then like if there's like admin stuff I have to do or like things on the computer, I'll do that. If I need to like cook, I'll cook. And then when I get bored, I go to my mom's house and I walk her dog, since that's like outside of Jordan the only human interaction, not human interaction that I get. So yeah, working out, eating healthy, and routine have been like huge. If you know me, you know that my life is usually very, very full. So this is the most unfull that it's ever been. So I'm just trying to like take advantage of that and like what that looks like and what does it look like to be disciplined in a season where it would be like very easy not to be disciplined. But yeah.
No, that's really cool. Now, in this season, like what's been really difficult to navigate for you? I mean, you kind of hinted like you like to be really full, but you haven't been so full. So like, what besides that, like what do you feel like God's been teaching you in this season? How do you navigate that?
I think it's just being really patient with yourself, but also being patient with the season. Like it's such an abnormal, like it's not normal. Like nothing about what we're going through is normal, in like every sense of the word. And so I've just been learning to like be patient in what it is. So like not seeing my family, not seeing my nephews has been like really difficult. Jordan knows that because I talk about it like every day. But yeah, so like how to be patient in that and just like understanding that like this is what it is for right now, but like the world's not ending. Like it's okay. Like we can still stay connected with family through FaceTime and texting people and like still connecting with people. And then yeah, what God's been teaching me is just, yeah, one, to be patient, but also to just stop and listen in moments and just be, um it's just so, it'd be so easy to be distracted in this season, but I'm just really trying to take advantage of like I can have slowness and I can have stillness in this season. So if I feel like a hunch towards something, I'm trying to lean into that. So like one of the things was like writing. Like I felt like God was just really leading me to start writing. So I've been trying to navigate that. I have no idea if I'm good at it, but I'm giving her a good old college try. So yeah, things like that, like just learning to listen, be still, soak up the moments, enjoy them, be patient. Yeah.
No, that's really cool. Just a thought that I had while you were saying that, I think something that would be um, almost like remiss if you were to do this on the other side. So like you're learning to be patient, you're learning to slow down, you're learning to capitalize on the season. How are you going to fight that tendency once we get back to a normal? Because the opposite is once everything gets back to normal, you're going to be like, oh, I'm going to go fill my schedule, I'm going to go do all this. Like, what are some things that you feel like you're going to take forward from this season? Because although it's hard, it doesn't necessarily mean it's everything that's happening in this season is a bad thing. So what are some things that you're going to try to hold on to post pandemic?
I would say, I mean, discipline is huge. Like it would be so easy to just sit in front of Netflix all day and not even think about it. And I know that's, or TikTok, realize TikTok. So, or that. So yeah, anyways, it'd be so easy to just become distracted, things like that. But I think discipline is so huge in this where that has to be something that's brought out on the other side. And I believe that before this happened, I'm like weirdly high capacity and like weirdly all about bettering myself. But I think like the patience thing is like huge. And I learned that kind of when I had my surgery too. Like this whole being in quarantine hasn't come so much as a shock just because I had been off work for like 2 months prior to this. So yeah, it'd be really easy for me when this is all over to just be like, hey, let's go, like buckle up, like let's get going. We can fill our schedule now that things are open and I'm working and everything like that. But I think making space is a huge thing to be taken on the other side. Like making, like if you don't make space for things, they're not going to happen. So making space to exercise, making space to like make sure that I am like resting and reading and reflecting, things like that. Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question. But.
No, it does. That's awesome. And I think it's so good, just that idea of like not resting on only in this season, but looking forward to, where do we go from here? How do I take things that I've learned in this season and continue to move that forward? Soma, if you have questions for any of the leaders here or myself, just write in the chat, who's it for? And we'll get to that as we go. But continuing on, Joel, in this season, what would you say some things that God's teaching you would be?
Good question. Calling it out and just recognizing areas in my life where I can improve. And I'll explain. It kind of ties in the whole COVID lifestyle. I'm like, there's people here in this YouTube video and even between us four, like everyone's different the way they do things. I'm like a very go with the flow type person. Like I'm not a high structure person. I don't plan out my days into like hour increments or hour compartments. I could probably use a little bit more of that, but I very much go with the flow. And as COVID started, if you saw me in maybe like the first 3 to 4 days of quarantine, I probably did nothing, like absolutely nothing. Like it was like a blur. And I was like, huh, after 3 days, I'm like, I feel like crap. Like, what have I done? Like this is gonna be a rough however long this is gonna be. And I'm like, no, 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 no. That's not quite the case. I need to actually like take initiative and to like seek myself, like seek goodness and seek clarity and seek joy in my life rather than waiting for something to come. Because in a time with limited structure and in a time with limited boundaries in terms of like your time constraints and whatnot, there's nothing there. You got to make them yourself. And so for me, initiative and intention, I've been learning in terms of how to kind of press in, keep the rhythms going, rather than just kind of letting the natural time schedules of the day like fall in for me, because that's not the case anymore. So
No, that's so good. Let me ask you a question from Julia, since you were the one speaking up the time. What are some tips that you have for students during this time? Like, do you have any suggestions to help them get through this time well?
yeah, if you guys have friends and you can't see them, Zoom them, Microsoft Teams them. We have like with our people our age, I guess. Like I see Amanda probably once every 2 or 3 nights on like a Zoom chat with like 20 other people. We like make a time to stay connected, because it's easy just to, I don't know, sit around and be like, I really don't want to, but no matter what, you feel kind of fulfilled afterwards that you've stayed connected, um, and stayed kind of like in tune with the people in your life. So it could be people from SOMA, people from school, people from your family. Find a way to connect with them. And I'm finding Zoom's the best way to do that. That's just my suggestion. That doesn't mean you have to do that, but that's just what I suggest. And what else? Um, it does go back to what I was saying before. Um, how to I guess cope in this time of nothingness is actually think about, try to pinpoint how you're feeling in a moment. And if you're feeling boredom, or if you're feeling blah, or if you're feeling like lazy, or whatever you're feeling, call it out. Be like, I'm feeling this. And then try to find a way to solve that in some kind of creative fashion. So if you're like, I'm feeling like a pile of poo right now, however that might look, be like, why do I feel like a pile of poo? Probably because I'm not doing anything. So maybe if I try this, it'll be less like a pile of poo. Sorry, I don't really want to talk about a pile of poo on Zoom, but I feel like it's the best way to illustrate my point. I don't know, but does that make sense? So call out what you're feeling and then find a way to get out of that by using creative means. Bring your friends, your family, write it down, do something to try to get out of the place that you're in if you're feeling blah, or if you're feeling lazy or depressed, or however you're feeling.
No, that's really good, Joel. Now, talk to me a little bit more about identifying what you're feeling, because I think it's really easy to just recognize you're like, oh, I don't feel good. Last week we talked with Pastor Cliff about his struggle with depression, and it was one thing to identify the feeling. How would you turn that corner? How would you navigate out of that season? Or what are some examples in this time where you've navigated out? Like, how did you get through those first 3-4 days? Because I mean, you were starting spring break when quarantine kind of really hit, and so you would have been off work anyway. So how did you kind of like navigate that to turn corners out of how you were feeling?
Good question. This is definitely not a one size fit all solution by any means. This is just, I don't know what I did. So some people might be like, I already tried that, and that's fine. As I kind of already mentioned, for me, I needed to create times to kind of change my mood up a little bit, because I would feel lazy. I'd be like, why do I feel this way? And then for the first couple of days, as mentioned, I would just remain in that laziness. And then I'm like, after 3 to 4 days, I'm like, I actually feel like crap right now. So for me, what I did is I get this thing right here. I always say this, and I'm decent at it, but I've been really good at it in the last 3 to 4 months. So even before COVID hit, with this phone, you guys all have a phone, most of you probably. Even if it's a flip phone, you can do this too. You guys have an app in here. It's called the Calendar app. I can bring it up here. Calendar. And so with the calendar, what you do is you just go into whatever day you want to do. So if it's that day or the next day, I will set little reminders for myself to check myself, if that makes sense. Or like if there's an activity I know that I wanted to do the day before, I would actually set up reminders being like, open this book, whatever that book is, or how are you feeling right now? And so when I check my phone, because of course we're in quarantine, you're not knowingly checking your phone all the time. All of a sudden, 3 o'clock p.m. rolls around and there's a little notification that says, how are you feeling? Or how am I feeling? And I just take a second, recognize how I'm feeling. And then for me, how do I turn the corner? For me, it's a change of scenery usually. If I'm feeling blah, if I'm feeling lazy, do everything I can in my mind and in my body to change that. So for me, sitting down is not helpful. So get up and start moving. And then 2, active mind, active body, find a way to get an active mind. And so that means reading something, if it means talking to somebody, something that gets you in your mind thinking. That's just for me. Variety, changing it up, changing up the scenery, running the exact opposite way of how you're feeling if you're not feeling good.
No, that's so awesome. I love that where you go, just change a place. You set reminders. You actively are doing like a self inventory of certain things that you have going on, and I love that. You know, something I say is change of pace, change of place, change of perspective, and it's really hard to get a lot of those right now because there's not many places you can go, and it's hard to switch up the pace. But finding little things like that in this season would definitely be a huge thing for success, whether it's going on a walk, whether it's just having conversations with people, whether it's text message, FaceTime, Zoom call, kind of like you said, those are definitely really good things. Now, Amanda, what are some keys that you've used to navigate this season? Because if anybody knows you, they know that you are the most extroverted person that most of us have ever met. You love people, you love being filled with your schedule, but what are some things that you've done to maintain resemblance of health?
Yeah, good question. I think that the first couple of weeks, I will say, were not easy for me at all and like very emotional because I think without having people to fill up my schedule, it made me kind of slow down and think through stuff. So I think the first thing I would suggest maybe is like, don't be afraid to think through things. And like, I guess what Joel was saying earlier as well is kind of something that I struggle with because I avoid feelings really, really fast. And it's easy to keep a busy schedule to kind of avoid certain issues in your life. But it's like, it's totally fine and totally important to take time to actually address those issues. So yeah, working through that kind of stuff. And then I think the best advice that I've kind of been able to follow is like, I noticed that my actual Bible reading got a little bit misplaced during COVID. So going to a Bible book that like you actually enjoy reading is probably the best way to hop back into a discipline of reading the Bible again. So for me, it's Esther and Job are my 2 favorite books, just because Job is a wisdom book, and then Esther is like a fantastic testimony, like such an interesting kind of scope of God working through each detail. So I would encourage you to take time and space to, when we say engage your mind, it's like that's part of Christianity is like thinking through it. And yeah, your faith becomes more interesting when you take time to study. I feel like sometimes we find that like Christianity sometimes gets routine and maybe a little bit dull, but it's like it's supposed to be so much more than that. And it's not just community that brings life, it's like actual slow, silent time with the Lord that brings so much life into you. And so I would just encourage you to take the time to practice that discipline and enjoy it. I don't know.
No, that's awesome. I mean, it's so interesting, like the things that we took for granted in this season. Like, how many times would we like skip on a Sunday because we're tired, or we just want to sleep in, or different things like that, where it's like, oh, I'm just not going to go to SOMA this Tuesday. I'll just go next week. And the things that we take for granted in this season. Leah has a question for you. Have you discovered any favorite Bible verses during this season?
That's a great question. I don't know if it's a Bible verse, but I think a concept that I've really kind of like, oh my goodness, it makes me think so deeply about my faith is that consequences are probable, but they're not promised. And that's like a really like mind-bending idea where it's like we can like life's not a formula. So we can always put in as much as we can, and like God honors hard work, and that's definitely something that like is proven throughout scripture. But sometimes we get really frustrated because we assume so much of like the work that we put in will reap good benefits. So like, for example, planning a trip to France was this summer, and I just canceled it 2 weeks ago, and that sucked. And it was really tough, but it's like that broken expectation is what made me feel sad. And it's learning that like God's love and God's faithfulness is seen even with a broken expectation, if that makes sense. So it's like we can prepare for a lot of things, but like faith is so much bigger than what we prepare for. So yeah, I don't know. I would encourage you to take your time with like studying the Bible, find some good resources, and it can make Bible study like way more interesting, way more fun, way more, I don't know, engaging is the best word, maybe. I think fun's a great word. Bible study can be so much more fun if you just, I don't know, take your time with it. Like have fun with it. I don't know.
No, that's awesome. I feel good about that.
You feel, I feel great about that. Awesome. Cool.
I love that. Amanda, we all miss seeing you in person. There's so many great thoughts that have been shared. And so I hope that you guys are taking hold and grabbing some of these. A lot of it is, whether it's being patient in the season, or doing like a mental health check on yourself, exploring that option, considering those thoughts for yourself, or even just taking time in this season and dedicating it to studying the word. I mean, I've been asking myself a lot of questions of like, why wouldn't I do that? Or why don't I do that? And then I kind of come to the conclusion, I'm like, well, I kind of have the time, so I don't really have much of an excuse not to. And so I kind of it really just comes to a lot of like dedication and willpower in that sort of thing. A couple more minutes left because there's a time cap on this Zoom call. Quinn, what's been a really great way for you to avoid procrastination? Because I mean, you're married to me, and so your tendency would be to sometimes procrastinate because you become who you spend time with. And me being your favorite person in the universe, spend a lot of time with me. So what are some ways that you overcome procrastination?
Great question. Honestly, it's the routine thing that's like huge. So having a routine has been huge. I definitely like do procrastinate sometimes, like even though I do have a routine, like I do procrastinate, or it's like for sure, like me and George usually will watch like Netflix at night. So that's why I say like I try not to watch TV during the day, is because if I did, then my whole day would just end up being TV. So yeah, honestly, routine has been huge. So that's one way I don't procrastinate. Two, I keep a list on my phone of like things I need to do in the week, which sounds ironic because I almost shouldn't have things to do in a week, but just little things like journal, write. I'm like doing summer semester, so things I need to do for summer semester, or like cleaning or activities I want to do. So I have like one list that says this week, and then another list that says like things to do in quarantine. So one is like super specific. One is like learn how to French braid, tie-dye hair, or tie-dye clothes, vacuum my car, like things like that. So I sound super organized right now. I promise you I'm not like a crazy freak that way. But yeah, lists and routine is really helpful for me.
No, that's awesome. Well, Soma, we're gonna break off into life groups now, but before this shuts down, let me pray real quick, and then we love you guys. Please jump into a life group, stay connected, spend extra time tonight hanging out and chatting. But I'll pray. God, thanks for what you're doing in this season. Thanks for the leaders that have spoken and imparted wisdom and things that they've learned. Would you continue to do a great work in their lives and all of these students' lives? In your name we pray, amen. Soma, we will be back with you next Tuesday. I'm so excited to see you guys, but go ahead, and the leaders are gonna open up these Zoom calls, and so jump in. We love you guys, and be safe.